Boeing announcing a significant third quarter loss and plans to cut 10% of its workforce. This surprise news dump after the market closed on Friday comes amid an ongoing labor strike. To discuss what's next for Boeing, we want to bring in Al Root. He's Barron's associate editor. Al, it's great to have you here with us this morning. Let's talk about the moves that we learned about on Friday afternoon. How much of this do you think is due to the strike versus the new CEO, Kelly Ortberg, really planning or positioning Boeing for a brighter future?
Latter, almost assuredly. So, Boeing is in a difficult position. The strike is actually like a culmination of it's almost a metaphor for everything that's gone wrong for 5-10 years. And so, if the strike ended today, the 17,000 layoffs, those would still happen. Those are about positioning the company for a brighter future. And the $5 billion in charges, right? That's almost like if there was no strike. Think about a new CEO who takes over a struggling business. They like to see they sort of take their medicine, have those kitchen sink quarters. That's what this feels like a little bit. So Boeing's problems predate the strike, and this is more about the future. And it's just so difficult with Boeing right now because there's so much going on. It's difficult to untangle.
Where, and especially within the financials, are we expecting even more of a hit for Boeing as a result of this in the near term?
So it's interesting, right? So they're going to lose, $10 a share in the third quarter. It's roughly $9 more than Wall Street was expecting. So there's sort of two ways to answer that, right? So are there more charges? Is this the last of the bad news on the earnings side? Don't forget, Boeing hasn't reported a full year profit since 2018. It's definitely close to the bottom. But then in terms of free cash flow and the balance sheet, we're not through the worst of that yet, partly because of the strike. We're still burning cash. And production, even before the strike, was depressed because of some of their quality issues that happened early in the year. So the balance sheet will still remain under pressure. Earnings hopefully can start to turn around in 25. But even on the balance sheet, I think one more thing that you'll see Kelly Ortberg do in the near term is address that regardless of what happens with the strike.
And Al, when it comes to some of the things that Kelly Ortberg needs to address going forward, he almost did leave the door open maybe to some more changes or to some more announcements in the statement or memo that he sent to employees on Friday. I'm curious, just from your reporting, what are analysts, what is the street, or what do insiders think that those moves could potentially look like?
So Kelly, I think that in terms of what can come next, there's the issue, this sort of, giant overhang of the balance sheet. So we should all sort of get ready for a $10 billion equity raise. In fact, some of those charges, if the fact that he did it before earnings and before the strike was done, might clear the way for doing the equity raise before the strike is over. Ideally, they'd like to end the strike, hopefully have the stock up. But, $10 billion, preserve that credit rating, which they keep telling us is important, pay down some of that $45 billion in debt, build the liquidity as they try and turn this around. That's probably the next thing. We have sort of the acute medicine of I'm going to lay off 17,000 workers because this isn't working. Then we're going to fix the balance sheet. And then after that, it's really about repairing relationships with employees and building the planes. Boeing has 6,000 planes in backlog. What they need to do is build those and send them to their airline customers so the cash can come in.
And so, Al, that gets at the next point that I was just about to bring up. I mean, we spoke with Delta CEO Ed Bastian during their earnings process and reporting, and he had pushed out their timeline even for expecting delivery of the MAX 10. That still needs to be certified. And then, of course, the production and deliveries from Boeing. So that brings up the question of how much do airlines who are sitting within those 6,000 backlog right now, how much does this continue to impact them, their flight schedules, the routes, and their pricing power as well?
Significantly is the bottom line, right? So, and this is a financial issue for Boeing to some extent because they need to financially compensate their customers. But there's only two places you can go for planes of this size, Boeing and Airbus. There's only, again, roughly 25,000 planes in operation. If Boeing and Airbus were doing everything that they wanted to do, they would probably be making 2,000 planes a year. So, that math, when you only make 400 or 500 and you would prefer to make 1,000, that's significant for Alaska, Delta, United, all of these big Boeing customers. What's more, that MAX 10 that you're saying, or the 777X, you're planning on getting that literally years ago, so you're scrambling for capacity. So the good news, or the silver lining for Boeing, is their customers have almost literally nowhere to go. So that's one of the reasons the stock is still where the stock is. But on the flip side, it's definitely an issue. And we could add that to Kelly Ortberg's list of things to do, repair those relationships. But key to that is just build the planes.
Yeah. Al Root, Barron's associate editor. Al, great to speak with you as always. Thanks so much for the context and insight.